What would he be doing there? Think about what we talked about. What do you think he'd be doing there?
Checking ships.
Very good. Peyton's got it right. He was there checking ships for contraband, for smuggling. Matter of fact, he was a really hardcore dude, and he decided to make it his mission in life to stop all colonial ships that were coming from England to check their cargo for smuggling. Even though we had done what? Gotten rid of the writs of assistance, right? So he decided to make it his mission to stop all colonial ships coming from England to check their cargo for smuggling. Well, he got kind of wound up about this, and he's chasing ships around, and he runs the Gaspé aground off the coast of Rhode Island. He runs the ship aground, which means he gets into too shallow a water, and the ship gets stuck, okay? And they can't get it off the ground back into the bay. So in his zeal to stop all colonial ships, William Duddingston runs the Gaspé aground off the coast of Rhode Island. Now what's he got to wait for to get that ship off? He's got to wait for the tide to come in, right? He's got to wait for the high tide to come in. And that, at the time, was going to take him about 9 hours before the tide would come in. So he's going to sit there grounded off the coast of Rhode Island in Narragansett Bay for about 9 hours until the high tide comes in, lifts up the ship, right, and lets it free so he can take it back out. So it's going to be 9 hours before high tide would come that would release the ship from the coastline. Well, that night, a very wealthy colonial patriot merchant by the name of John Brown gets word of Duddingston's actions against these colonial merchant ships. Okay? That night, a very wealthy colonial merchant by the name of John Brown gets word that this William Duddingston is stopping all colonial ships and checking for smuggling. Now, he's not very happy with that because it is his ships that are getting stopped, and he is smuggling goods in without paying taxes, and so he's losing money every time Duddingston stops one of his ships, right? And he's been doing this for a while, and he's upset, and so he decides, because Duddingston's actions are hurting his business, he wants some payback against him. John Brown wants some payback against him. Well, he also knows that Duddingston's ship is stuck on high ground, and he also knows that the high tide's not going to come in for 9 hours, which would be approximately 3 o'clock in the morning at that point on June 10th. So he runs the Gaspé aground on June 9th. The 9-hour time limit for the tide to come in, the tide's going to come in about 3 in the morning. So Brown knows he has some time to have his payback against the Gaspé and Duddingston because they're not going anywhere, are they? They're stuck. So what John Brown does, knowing that the high tide would not come until approximately 3 a.m. on June 10th, is he leads 65 men in 8 whaleboats on a raid of the Gaspé. Knowing that high tide would not come until 3 a.m. on June 10th, John Brown leads 65 men in 8 whaleboats on a raid of the Gaspé. Well, when the boats reach the Gaspé, which is again grounded right off the coast of Rhode Island and Narragansett Bay, one of Brown's crew, Joseph Buckland, aims and actually fires at Commander Duddingston. Fires at him. Did Brown give him the order to do that? No. No, what got all wound up, got close to the Gaspé, and Joseph Buckland aims and fires a shot at Commander Duddingston of the British Navy. Well, Brown and his men capture the crew of the Gaspé, and only because of a colonial doctor does Duddingston survive his wound. Okay, so he is treated by a colonial doctor and survives. So Brown brought a colonial doctor as one of the 65 men, thinking probably maybe his men would be injured. But when Joseph Buckland shot Commander Duddingston, the colonial doctor treated Duddingston and saved his life. Well, after they raid the Gaspé, capture the crew, what do they do with the ship? What? What do they do to the ship? Somebody say sink it? Well, now, how did they do that? They really did what? They set it on fire. Well, the intention was to set it on fire and burn it up. The problem was that fire eventually reached the powder magazine on the ship. Now, a powder magazine, whether it's on a ship or in a fort or whatever, is an area of the fort or ship in which all the gunpowder is stored. And when that fire hit the powder magazine on the ship, it didn't burn up, it blew up. It blew up. Well, when this word of the blowing up of the Gaspé and the shooting of its commander reached the British Parliament, what did they want? What? They wanted John Brown and his crew to be prosecuted and tried. And they wanted that trial not in colonial America, they wanted it where? England. So the British Parliament demanded that John Brown and his 65 men be brought back to England for trial. Well, do you think the American colonists are going to turn over John Brown and his men? Absolutely not. And fortunately for Brown and his men, they were never caught by British authorities. Never were caught. But it did cause a rift between, again, the American colonies and Great Britain. But they were never caught or tried. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to stop and give you a little break and kind of tell you where we're going. When we get here Monday, we will first go over the test and make it real clear to you what the correct answers were and what you needed to have correct answers. Explain to you on your test why you may or may not have gotten something marked wrong. And then we're going to move into the Tea Act of 1773, which is going to lead to the Boston Tea Party, which is going to lead to what are called the Intolerable Acts, which were just brutal, which is going to lead to the Suffolk Resolves and the First Continental Congress being established, where the American colonists now are going to band together instead of having separate rules and separate colonies. They're going to band together and prepare for a possible revolution. Okay? Alrighty, there we go. You have a